Throughout history in France, there have been a huge number of executions which changed the face of French society forever. The King Louis XVI and his Queen Marie Antoinette during the French Revolution were executed by the guillotine, and also later the leader of the revolution, Maximilien Robespierre, was executed on the device. But following the revolution there were a number of specific power plays by a number of people. One of the most powerful figures in history from around this time was Napoleon. But one of Napoleon's skilled military generals, and a man who would be named the Admiral of France and the Marshal of the Empire, was captured and was executed. Joachim Murat was the brother-in-law of Napoleon, but on the 13th of October 1815 he met his end facing a firing squad. Join us today as we look at the execution of the King of Naples, and remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. Joachim Murat was born in 1767, and his father was an affluent businessman and an innkeeper. His parents pushed him towards pursuing a job in the church, and he was taught by a parish priest, and was awarded a place at college when he was just 10. But he would desert from this way of life, and he enlisted in the military instead. But by 1790 he joined the National Guard, and he was sent to be a representative during the first anniversary of Bastille Day, and he was part of the 12th Chasseurs. The regiment to begin with had to remain loyal to the French Republic, and in 1792 Murat joined the Constitutional Guard, and then he left shortly after. He got into a number of arguments and duels over issues, but he was driven towards a revolution. By November 1792 he was made a sous-lieutenant, but 2 years after the king had been executed, royalists and counter-revolutionaries were planning an armed uprising. On the 3rd of October, General Napoleon Bonaparte was based in Paris, and he became the commander of the French National Convention's defending forces. Napoleon asked Murat to gather artillery from a suburb to control the government's forces. Murat managed to use the cannons and to transport them to Paris, avoiding rioters, and these cannons allowed Napoleon to save members of the National Convention. Napoleon did not forget this, and he made him a marshal and the first horseman of Europe, and also the Grand Duke of Berg and the King of Naples. Murat would be a companion of Napoleon, and he went with him as an aide to Italy, and he commanded cavalry during campaigns against the Austrians and others. He commanded the cavalry during the French-Egyptian expedition in 1798 and was a skilled military leader. He was a powerful man and supporter behind Napoleon, and Murat then married Caroline Bonaparte and became the brother-in-law of Napoleon. He was then made the Marshal of the Empire on the 18th of May 1804, and was also made the Prince of the Empire and the Admiral of it, despite not knowing much about the navy. He continued to fight in a number of battles, and after the Grand Duchy of Berg was established, he was appointed the Grand Duke of Berg and the Duke of Cleves in March 1806. He was then named the King of Naples, and he was in charge of the French army in Madrid. He was also used in the Russian campaign, and he became known for being the best cavalry commander at a number of different battles, and despite being a brilliant horseman, he did not really care for the horses. Napoleon put together a huge horse-based force, but the animals were treated rather poorly, and they were forced to conduct large marches where they suffered from hunger, exhaustion and sores. Murat himself made these worse, and he failed to get proper horseshoes for them to traverse roads that had become iced over, and the overworking horses were exploited by France's enemies. He served with Napoleon during the Great Campaign of 1813, but after the defeat of the Battle of Leipzig, Murat entered a secret agreement to save his own throne, and he switched sides. He would later declare war on Austria, but this did not go well, and he was defeated following this and he fled. He escaped to Corsica and then travelled on to Pizzo, and he was then captured by the soldiers of King Ferdinand IV of Naples. He was held prisoner in the Castello di Pizzo, and a tribunal found him guilty of insurrection, and Murat was sentenced to death to die by a military firing squad. The soldier who it's believed had fought 200 battles for France and was a bold and brave leader would fight no more, and his execution was scheduled. He was a man who, when Napoleon's grip on Europe was getting weak, he looked after himself and went into business for himself to focus on self-preservation and getting his own power. He tried to retain his power, but he could not. Napoleon would later say that if Murat would have been by his side at the Battle of Waterloo, then Napoleon would have been victorious. But on the 13th of October 1815, Joachim Murat had been led out to his execution place, and he was to die by a military firing squad. It was said that he faced death in the same way he went into battle, being fearless and extravagantly dressed. It was said that, on being asked if he had any final request to make, he said he wished to have a bath prepared for him and perfumed with a bottle of eau de cologne, and as a last request, that his eyes should not be bandaged. Both wishes were granted, and by King Ferdinand, 12 of his own soldiers were selected to shoot him. When the fatal hour came, seeing the emotion of his men, Murat said, "My friends, if you wish to spare me, aim at my heart." Inside the Castello di Pizzo, the firing squad stood there with their rifles aimed at Murat, and he stood there fearlessly confronting them with his arrogance. The firing squad shot straight and instantly killed Joachim Murat. He was a man who was incredibly powerful in France and was very close with Napoleon, but his intentions to secure his own power and territory led him to defect, and with this his downfall came rather sharply. His execution was a brutal one, in which he was shot by a number of riflemen, and the former King of Naples was killed inside his own kingdom. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.